It is Saturday, August 2nd, 2025, just about 10 o'clock here on the East Coast. And if it is after a WWE PLE, it is, of course, Wrestling Night in America. I am your host, Brandon LeClair, PWTorch contributor. Glad to be back. It's been a few weeks. We were last here for WWE Evolution back in the middle of July. Good to be back for the first ever double night SummerSlam event. This was night one of two at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Apologies, we are getting on the air just a little bit late here because my co-host Greg Parks having some audio issues. He is still trying to get that sorted out. But I am not alone. In the meantime, we have an excellent emergency co-host who was waiting in the wings already to join us on the show as a VIP caller, but now he will step in as a co-host, and he has plenty of experience doing so. So I know that we are in good, capable hands. Please welcome to the show, not Greg Parks, at least for now, but PWTorch contributor and VIP member Sean Plichta. Sean, thanks for stepping in an emergency role. You kind of saw as everything was going down in behind the scenes. Greg having some audio issues, but we're in very capable hands with you.
Well, I appreciate it. No, I just, we were talking about it. It sucks when audio things happen and internet stuff happens. It's a bad feeling because it's not you. It's something just going on with the dumb technology at times. So Greg will be on with us shortly. I know he will. I know he'll make it on. So it's all good.
I believe in Greg. I thought at first it was me because we've had that issue before in the backstage room, so to speak. We'll call it gorilla position.
Right.
Where before we go live, for whatever reason, I can hear everyone, but they can't hear me. And so I backed out and thought that would solve the problem, but no dice. It is on Greg's end, so he is trying to get that worked out. In the meantime, Sean, you and I can run through this card with the help, of course, from VIP members and others in the chat who have already been quite active. Lots of chatter about the fact that this one was an early show starting at 6 o'clock tonight. We were over by just about 9:30. It feels strange, Sean, to be talking to you at 10 o'clock at night instead of midnight. That's our usual meeting time. This is nice. I mean, even on a Saturday night to be starting this thing early. Some chatter about whether or not it was too early, which I'm not going to complain. I mean, was it a little bit harder for me to scramble, to have dinner and stuff before? Yes, but I made the adjustment. It was okay.
Yes.
Good to have a show done at 9:30, and good to have a 3-hour and 15 to 20-minute show or so. Only 6 matches on this card. We're going to run through all of them from top to bottom. But I figure we'll start with the main event. We'll start with what is freshest on our minds. We'll see if Greg hops in here at any point while we're talking about this one. But Sean, the headline of the night for certain, we have 2 new world champions by the end of the show. First, CM Punk defeating Gunther in just over 30 minutes to finally capture the World Heavyweight Championship. It's a long, plodding match. I expect there to be varying opinions on this one. I personally liked it, but I also would not fault anyone for being like, oh, that was really boring. I think that you're going to get a pretty wide variety of opinions on this one, and that's good. But we'll save conversation about that for just a little bit because we're burying the lead in the sense that the biggest story here is less than or just about 5 minutes after CM Punk captures the world title. He is interrupted by the returning Seth Rollins, who at first appears to actually be injured. He's still on crutches, and he's got a large brace on his knee. But that turns out to be a swerve. Rollins drops the crutches, takes the brace off, rushes to the ring, and suddenly he is cashing in his Money in the Bank contract. He, of course, defeats CM Punk then in just about 7 seconds to become the new World Heavyweight Champion. So Seth Rollins closing the night as World Champion. Sean, take it away. How are you feeling coming out of this thing?
Yeah, it was interesting. I knew that this was a possibility, of course, if Punk won the match that this would happen, just because everything Seth said. If you're going to win the title, all right, if it's up to me, you're never going to win the title. I'm never going to let you win it. So when Punk won, I thought it was definitely possible that that would happen, and I was still debating the whole time. What we've been talking about it for a while. Is it a work? Is it a shoot? How bad is he really hurt? I kept watching the replay at Saturday Night Main Event. I'm like, I don't see an injury. It doesn't seem bad to me, but Seth's had injuries in the past, so maybe it is truly he's out for a while, and we'll kind of see where they go with the faction. I don't know. For me, it was fine the way they did it, because it took forever initially, and I was like, okay, this is going to take this long. How is Seth going to get in the ring and eventually win this thing? What's he going to do? And then he just started bashing him with the briefcase, which made a lot of sense. And then he's going to cash in and he's going to win real quick. One issue I have with it is it makes sense in the story of Seth and Punk, but to me, I've said on with Wade a few times, and Greg's probably heard this. I don't know why, if you're a big faction, if you're the top faction on the show, you're trying to be this big time deal, why you would cash in on the lesser title, even though Punk has it. Like, that just seems a little beneath that to me. But again, it makes sense with the story they're telling. Like Punk, and the other thing I don't like, just going back to the match really fast, as far as Punk winning, I just don't understand. To me, if you're going to have Punk, and here's where I'm going. Like, I wouldn't have Punk win a title that quick, but again, the story was Seth's going to win right away and it's going to cash in. I wonder where Gunther goes, because Gunther basically dominates the whole match and then he loses pretty quickly. I hope they have a plan. Gunther's one of my favorite wrestlers. I really enjoy him as a heel. I think it just seemed really sudden that he's just going to win it back and then lose it really quickly. So I hope there's a plan for him. But they cashed in it was well done, well executed, I think, overall. But the lesser title, it just feels weird. Seth getting the world heavyweight title again just feels beneath him to me at this point. But that was just my thought on it, watching it live, watching it happen.
Yeah, I do think that there certainly is a strong argument to be made that Gunther feels a bit cast aside here. I mean, he loses after an impressive showing, and then we immediately get the move on to Seth Rollins cashing in, winning the title, and then clearly there's a story here that they're telling and have been telling for many months between CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and that is the story going forward. You also have a lot of other challengers kind of waiting in the wings. I said in my report for PWTorch.com earlier tonight that Sami Zayn coming out of this feud with Karrion Kross, it feels like he's being positioned to climb up the ladder again and maybe challenge for that title. So there's other moving pieces to this. And it does feel like, since Gunther has been in that world title picture for so long, so consistently, that there aren't a lot of fresh matchups for him at that level. And so I do wonder if maybe he's a good candidate to maybe switch brands in the next couple of months and kind of move him away from that world title. It would give him a lot of fresh faces to wrestle over on SmackDown and maybe, freshen things up for him. So I do look at that as a possibility. Before we get too far into the weeds here on this conversation, it does look like Greg is ready to join us. So I do want to bring him into the fold. My original planned co-host, and still will be co-host, the one and only Mr. Greg Parks, PWTorch, longtime PWTorch columnist. Greg, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Great, good to have you, man.
Hey, good to talk to you guys. I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
That was
that
was a tremendous struggle to literally flip a switch on the computer on one of the screens. I don't know how it got flipped the other way to mute, but all I literally had to do was go into settings and unmute this mic that I plugged in. So again, have no idea why it was on mute in the first place. I certainly didn't do it. But now we're here and we're talking SummerSlam, and it's great to be with you guys.
So you've given away and ruined the drama and the tension, but I did let's put this up here anyway, because I was going to throw to Sean and ask if there was any truth to this rumor from Mike Good in the chat, who says that Sean created Greg's audio issues just to co-host.
Look,
Sean, what say you?
Hey, Okay, Mike, I could see why you would think that. That's fair, but I am a nice person. I would never do that to Greg. I consider him a friend. So no, I did not do that. I promise.
Okay, good to know,
No.
because like I said, I didn't put it on mute in the settings. So I don't know who did. I'm not casting aspersions, Sean. But took a while to figure out exactly what was going wrong. Took about
Sean, I think we're gonna have to see that email history to make sure that there's no ticket to Florida within the last day or so. I'm glad to be here with both of you. Sean was privy to the issues Greg was having in our little backstage area before the show. And so I told him he'd make a very good emergency co-host, but now that he's here, I'm not just going to kick him to the curb just because Greg showed up. So, Sean, we'll keep you around for we'll keep you around for as long as you'd like tonight. Greg, we're talking main event and the double title change that closed out SummerSlam. Oh, Adam just commenting that Sean is a heel. Man,
how dare you, Adam?
I don't believe that.
You're crazy.
Sean cashed in his PWTorch in the bank.
Yes, that's I love that. That's awesome. That's exactly what I did, BJ. That's exactly what I did. I'm sorry now.
We got some good ones here. All right, so we're talking main event, the double world title change. Greg, take it away. What are your thoughts on that before we get into sort of the meat of the actual world title match between Gunther and Punk?
I thought it was tremendously well done. I think you can nitpick a lot of things coming out of that, but I think when you look at it holistically overall, all the way dating back to Seth's quote-unquote injury at Saturday night's main event and how it set up this conversation about, is he really injured? Is he not? And nobody really knew the answer to that. You had people reporting both sides of it. And I think that created a lot of intrigue for tonight as well. And, that's not even something I thought of until the very end of the match. Like I didn't even think of Seth Rollins cashing in, didn't even cross my mind until nearly the end of the match. So I thought that was really well done. The reveal that him coming out on crutches and then revealing that he wasn't injured after all was a nice touch. The beating that Punk took, and I know you said we're going to talk about the meat of the match here in a minute, but the beating Punk took in the match in the beating him down to the point where even though he wins, he's susceptible to a cash-in. And so that played a big part in that aspect of it too. The drama of Punk finally winning this title and losing it minutes later. So now you're thinking, what's Punk's mindset right now? And not just losing it, but losing it to an arch rival like Seth Rollins, who they've had their battles, but it doesn't feel like he's ever gotten over Seth Rollins, right? That feud, even though it was done for a moment, it never felt like the issue was settled. So that reignites that. And I heard Sean talking about Gunther and what's next for him. I mean, he dominated that match. Yeah. This was not Gunther losing in 5 minutes. And it's like, oh my gosh, the aura is gone. The mystique is gone. Where does he go from here? I think he can, it's sort of like the Jey Uso loss at WrestleMania, where kind of dominated Jey Uso for that match. Jey Uso wins, not quite the slip on the banana peel finish, but Gunther can retain a lot of what he says about himself. Maybe he can't say he's the best in the world anymore, or because he said himself that it's the person who has the title that's the best in the world. But I think a lot of the stuff about Gunther still rings true, even with this loss. I don't think he's hurt a lot by it. And I think it sets up a lot of different interesting scenarios. Is there more to Gunther and Punk after this? Is there a Gunther Seth Rollins scenario down the line? Certainly Punk and Rollins is going to be a big piece of it. Just by virtue of being out of the picture for so long, Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, I think they are at a better place now than when they were when Seth Rollins got injured. They were out there carrying these long segments. They were the ones responsible for being in these matches with Seth Rollins out. So I think they're actually better off now as well, having Seth Rollins be on the sidelines for as long as he has. So again, I think there are valid critiques, nitpicks of it, but I think when you look at it holistically and you look at where things can go and just the intrigue of how things might line up over the next weeks and months, I think it's a strong thumbs up for me the way the show ended here.
I want to talk a little bit too about the Seth Rollins injury, and Greg, you alluded to this. There's been a lot of chatter in the chat room about it as well. People sort of wondering what was the point of the injury, the fake injury, as we're now presuming it, and I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is we collectively as a fan base got worked to some extent, but the question is simply how much, because I'm trying to come up with the logic for Rollins faking an injury that led him to losing a big televised match against LA Knight only to surprise cash in on Punk. It doesn't seem like it was a necessary step to take. You could have had Rollins in the picture this whole time. Punk and Gunther wrestle the same match. Punk is, beaten down at the end of this thing and unable to overcome Seth cashing in. I mean, it's essentially the same story that they could have told without Rollins going through the fake injury thing. What I wonder.
Sorry, I think it's just lulling your potential opposition into a false sense of security. If you're CM Punk or Gunther and you go into that SummerSlam match and you're worried about your opponent, but you're also got one eye on the aisleway to make sure Seth Rollins doesn't come down. That's one thing. But if you're not thinking that's going to happen, that may change your mindset a little bit. And sometimes that's just as important as the physical in the ring. So I think that's ultimately going to be the explanation, and I can buy that as an explanation. But you're right. Like, had Seth Rollins been in the picture this entire time, Punk was so beaten down by the end of that match. Rollins cashing in when he's been on TV this entire time or not doesn't really make that much of a difference.
And what I'm kind of wondering now in the aftermath, now that we know that Rollins is fine, is if this might have been a happy accident of sorts, because we had heard reports from a number of different sources that said that Seth was reportedly supposed to go over in that match with LA Knight. And to me, that made a lot of sense. It didn't seem to me as though Knight was set up for that type of win. I mean, Rollins is clearly a step above him on the card. And so what tonight left me wondering is if the injury at Saturday night's main event was legitimate, and then Seth got an MRI, it wasn't serious, and they just decided to run with it. And, maybe that isn't the case at all. Maybe it was planned from the very start. But that to me seems like a possible scenario where the company had a scare, Seth had a scare, and they were able to quickly recover because Rollins was okay. The other thing that always sort of made me think that the Rollins injury was legitimate, and again, maybe they carried this out to basic perfection, but to me, watching Saturday night's main event last month, the way that show played out, and the way that Goldberg's retirement speech got cut off at the end of the show, that felt to me like a show whose pacing was thrown off by something they hadn't accounted for. And what they hadn't accounted for was an injury to Seth Rollins. So after watching that show, it felt to me like, okay, the Rollins LA Knight match ran short. The Gunther Goldberg match went the length that it was supposed to, and it should have gone off the air, and that retirement speech was not supposed to be on TV. It was supposed to be for the live crowd. They had the extra time, so they took the extra commercial break at the end of the show, tried to squeeze the speech in, and they didn't get it done. It just felt like, for a company that is so buttoned up production-wise, that didn't feel like it was purposeful. That felt like there was a mistake made along the way because they were accounting for something they didn't plan for. So, I mean, maybe that's just a conspiracy theorist in me. I mean, Greg, feel free to shoot me down if you don't think there's any possibility there.
I'm going to shoot you down. I think
Okay.
I know Post Wrestling's John Pollock had that exact scenario that happened to Seth Rollins on Saturday Night's Main Event.
Oh, okay.
He was told that ahead of time. Meltzer later confirmed that that's what he had heard as well. I know Mike Johnson's getting some receipts, PW Insider, on social media because he was reporting that it was a legit injury at the time. Mm-hmm. But knowing what we know now about that initial reporting and who was reporting it, I think it's pretty clear, in my mind anyway, that there was no injury and it was storyline from the start.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have not kept up. Admittedly, I've not kept up with the majority of the reporting over the last month or so. So I mean, I saw what I saw in the initial interim. It just felt the pacing of Saturday night's main event felt off to me, and it felt like they were accounting for something. But in any case, it doesn't matter now because obviously Seth is healthy and they were able to execute this cash in.
Yeah.
It does obviously allow you to kind of debate the merit of whether or not the injury angle was necessary. I think it's fine. I don't think that they lose anything by having done it this way. And I do think, Greg, like you alluded to, there was that cool moment with Seth throwing the crutches aside, and the crowd certainly seemed to see it coming. I mean, there was a "We want Seth" chant during the match, and then there was sort of that, we've talked on this show a lot about like disliking swerves for the sake of swerves. But I think that when you have, when you can play into audience expectations a little bit, I think that there's a way to do it smartly. And I thought that this was smart in the sense that they brought Seth out there so people are instantly excited. But then the crowd sees that he's on crutches and they're like, oh man, we're not actually getting the cash in. He's just going to tease the cash in. So they teased us with him coming back and hitting his music. But then, oh no, wait, he actually is okay. And he is going to cash in. So I like the subversive nature of that. I thought that they did a good job with it. Sean, I'll throw to you one more time here for any closing thoughts on that before we start to hop through the rest of the card here.
No, I thought that part, like what you said, was that part was well done. Greg, I wanted to ask you again. I know you heard me, but I think it's this faction, because again, I'll go back to Bronson really quick. He took a pin earlier, so he's not as strong as he could have been. And why would you cash in for the world title? Like we know it's a title, but to us, we know it's a lesser title than the WWE title. Like, if it was me, if you're still going to do,
I don't think it's that way. I don't think it's that way in WWE. I don't think it's seen that way. I think WWE's worked very hard to try to make it seem like those two titles are basically on equal footing. And if that's the story that they're going with, that's how the wrestlers see it. So we might see it that way, but I don't know that in WWE canon, Seth Rollins is going to say, I'm not going to cash in on this title because it's a lesser title. I just don't think WWE in storyline sees it that way.
Because I think that, to me, I was thinking initially in Saudi Arabia, which I didn't want to do it in Saudi Arabia because it's Saudi Arabia. But, if you're going to have the same scenario, just have Punk. There's a lot of people that wanted Punk to face Cena like way down the road, and they did it earlier than they probably should have. And I just thought, we'll have Punk win there and have Seth cash in there. I know it's in Saudi Arabia, and I get the fans here won't get it, but I just think you're going to do the same story. Just do it there. I like the way they did it. I hope Gunther, like, to me, it's, again, Gunther is dominant the whole match, but I think there's two ways to look at it. You can say, like you said, Greg, he dominated the whole match, so it doesn't hurt him. But then you can say on the other part, he dominated the whole match, but then lost very quickly. And it's like, you could make the same argument. Well, Punk was pretty beat down. All of a sudden, he just beats Gunther kind of out of nowhere. And it, to me, that can hurt a little bit. But I think Gunther can be okay. He's so good of a character. I think he could make a way to still make himself feel strong. But that was my
I feel like we had the same argument, not you and me, Sean, necessarily, but the larger we after WrestleMania. Remember that the argument was, Gunther tapped way too quickly to Jey Uso's submission. How is he ever going to recover from this? Lo and behold, he recovers. We can't argue out of one side of our mouths that wins and losses don't matter in wrestling and how frustrating that is. and then also get to argue, well, this person lost and now he's done. I mean, I think I agree that wins and losses, I wish wins and losses mattered more. But I don't look at a Gunther loss like this and say, wow, that's a real setback. That's, this isn't the Seattle Seahawks losing to the San Francisco 49ers in a divisional matchup in week 13. Wins and losses don't matter the same in professional wrestling as they do in other professional sports. So if wins and losses truly mattered, yeah, I think this discussion would be valid, and we could talk about how this sets Gunther back, what he can do to, but just doesn't matter that much. And so again, like I think he dominated enough of the match for people's takeaway from that match, not that, Gunther lost and was disappeared after the match, but no, Gunther, that was a really good match, and Gunther and Punk did really well, and Gunther dominated.
I think too that Gunther, when you still look at the career of Gunther holistically across the main roster, he has still only lost a handful of times. I mean, I don't even know if you can count them on one hand, the number of times that, or you can count them on one hand, the number of times that he's been pinned cleanly. So to lose to CM Punk in a battle the way that it was, and to lose the way that he lost, coming up bloody, and them telling the story that suddenly, Gunther has never or so rarely seen his own blood, and it freaked him out, and Punk was able to capitalize on that as the grizzled veteran who saw his opening. I thought that was done well and done tastefully, and I think that Paul Levesque's creative has shown that there is a lot of faith in Gunther, and I don't think that a loss to CM Punk is going to hurt him long term. I also think, Sean, the point that I raised before Greg was with us, and Greg, you can respond to this if you want as well. Granted, the brand split isn't particularly strong right now, but Gunther seems like a guy who could be poised for a move to SmackDown with a lot of fresh opponents over there to work with, and possibly get to challenge for the WWE Championship before too long, especially, with Cody Rhodes potentially winning that title again shortly here. It feels like Gunther has run through the gamut of opponents on Raw, especially having been world champion for so much of his time there. Do you think that is an easy way to sort of address any concern there is with Gunther? Fresher waters over on SmackDown, and a new title to go after.
Well, we didn't have the annual draft. I do wonder if that's something that will be coming soon, and that would position Gunther in a way to be able to move him to SmackDown in a way that makes sense. But certainly, if you got John Cena turning babyface, as he apparently did on SmackDown, and that'll be a tomorrow discussion. But certainly Gunther would be a quality heel opponent. He can work the style of match that John Cena needs to work at this stage of his career, as we saw tonight. I mean, that was a match with CM Punk that Gunther worked that John Cena could very easily work. In terms of the pacing and everything like that. And you wouldn't need to do the 6 ref bumps, and you wouldn't need to do the interference ad nauseum and stuff like that. So that's what immediately comes to mind when you say moving to SmackDown. Certainly you've got Cody Rhodes there as well. So I think a Gunther move to SmackDown would be cool. I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't dismiss it out of hand. I'm wondering how you get there. Is there a trade? If there's not a draft coming up where you can easily move him, is there a trade that's made? We've seen that happen before. We've seen, mysterious free agent periods in order to move people around. So
we've kind of been in one since WrestleMania too.
Yeah, they can come up with something. It wouldn't take more than 15 minutes to come up with something, a way to get him over there. But certainly now that you mention it, that wouldn't be a terrible idea, I don't think.
Wanted to bring up a comment that's been brought up a couple of times here in the chat room. Standard deviation, just saying, love most of the match, especially Punk's selling and pacing, but thought Gunther looked dumb for losing due to his decision to pose to the crowd. We've had a couple of people mention that. Greg, where do you land on this? I feel like from where I sit, it's better if it happens to a heel than a babyface.
Yes.
It's not necessarily an ideal situation, but I would much rather a heel get caught, sleeping than a baby face for playing to the crowd. And I think that it, to me, it really played into this notion that Gunther had Punk's number throughout the whole match, and he was just so assured that this was in the bag for him, that he was willing to, deviate from his usual the usual closeness with which he wrestles these matches, where he just stays deliberately on top of his opponent. And this was a little bit different, and it cost him.
And I do think Gunther does have a history of getting a little too cocky in matches. And, I don't know if it was the Jey Uso WrestleMania match where he pulls him up after a 2 count or something like that. So you could argue that this is just a more exaggerated version of that, where he's taking it to that next step. But for as much as he is credited by the announcers as this kind of wrestling machine who's able to block out all kinds of outside noise, he does, I think, react in a way that shows off his cockiness in these matches. And I think this was that. And, part of the story was also Gunther saying, CM Punk is the best in the world, maybe only to the fans, but not in reality. And so, he is taunting the fans, they're best in the world. Right. So you can kind of make it fit. Is it a decision I would have made? Probably not. If you're worried about Gunther and how he looks coming out of this, it does protect him in a way, because it's sort of an out for Gunther that Punk didn't really beat him mano a mano. He took advantage of a weakness in Gunther and a weak moment or whatever the case may be. It makes him look bad on another level, though, for getting distracted like that. Although, again, I think he's done that more than people maybe realize or want to acknowledge. That's kind of my take on it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Sean, anything else that you wanted to add here before we jump into the rest of the card?
No, I think we're good for now. Good to move on.
Cool. All right, let's start from the top here. 6 o'clock show, as we talked about to start the show, was a little strange with it being so light out for the vast majority of the night. We'll get the same start time tomorrow night, so looking forward to an early Sunday for once. That's something I certainly will not complain about. Cole introduced the show after some jets flew over the stadium. One thing that I noticed throughout the course of the night, and I'll pause briefly here to let you guys comment on it if you'd like, there were several moments interwoven throughout this show where I could not quite tell if Michael Cole was laying out to let moments breathe and let the visuals kind of take front and center stage, and it was a new strategy they were employing, or if they were having audio issues with Michael Cole. Did either of you pick up on that?
Go ahead, Greg.
Not in any significant way, I don't think, no.
No, I don't. There's some little parts before some of the stuff that I missed, like especially early. So I probably missed, if you're referring to something, I probably didn't just catch it initially. So no, I didn't see anything blatant like that or anything noticeable.
Okay. Yeah, so it happened a couple of times. The first was at the start of the show before the sort of during the cold open. And then it also happened, I want to say it was during the women's tag. The camera pulled back for a bit and there was just silence. There was just nothing for a good 15, 20 seconds. And Cole came in almost mid-sentence as though it was almost as though he was talking off air, then was told that he was off air, and so he tried to recover by like restarting his sentence, but it didn't come off supernatural. So I'm not sure. It might have just been a new strategy where the announcers were told to lay out just a little bit more to sell some visuals, or it could have been an issue. I don't know. It wasn't a huge deal either way. Just something I picked up on. So after Cole introduces the show and talks about the weather. They were very happy with the weather here after, of course, having their famous issues with WrestleMania in New York back in 2019. Alicia Taylor announces or introduces Cardi B. She heads down to the ring and cuts a very, very brief promo. hyping up the show. And then we get Jey Uso's entrance for our opening tag team match. It's Roman Reigns and Jey Uso taking on Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed with Paul Heyman. Uso and Reigns win this one in just over 21 minutes. I thought this was a pretty paint-by-numbers tag match overall, but it worked in its spot for the show. You're always going to benefit by having two just incredibly over white-hot baby faces, and that's certainly what they have with Jey and Roman. I thought they've done an admirable job in the last couple of weeks building up Breaker and Reed to be a credible threat to Reigns and Jey, despite not having Seth around, to sort of sell the match and make it feel a little bit more main event level. I thought Breaker and Reed sort of stood up to the task here and were able to match up against Jey and Roman pretty well. A lot of standard tag team stuff here. That's something I want to touch on as we work through this show. I think my biggest takeaway in this one was, and Michael Cole's as well, was Roman Reigns being fully deferential to Jey Uso and being the one to step in the way of Breaker's spear, take the bullet for Jey, so to speak, and then Jey gets the big finish and the big win, and Reigns is sort of secondary to Jey Uso for the first time. It's not something we've ever seen before, and it was strange. It was strange to see for the first time Jey and Roman sort of being treated like equals on a big stage. Sean, I'll go to you first here, and then Greg, you can jump in right after.
I thought overall the match was pretty well done. I mean, I like a lot of the action in it. I thought it was pretty hard hitting, pretty physical. When the Roman dove outside, I was like, Roman, you better watch out, because he almost could have fallen on his head. He went over the top and
he overshot.
He went all the way over.
Yeah.
Thank goodness on his back. But man, that could have been scary. Yeah. They gotta be careful when they do those. They gotta make sure they're far enough back where it fits and fits what they're doing. But the match was good. Overall, everything they did was okay. Jay's over like we're over. I know we've talked about this a lot of times, the three of us. Jey just isn't doing it for me as a character. I know he's over, but I mean, his matches aren't good. His promos haven't been good since he's done this whole solo thing. And to me, if I'm making Bronson and Braun feel big, I'm having Bronson get a big win here and pin Jey, and it doesn't hurt Jey. It doesn't hurt anything at all, unless they're telling a story again with Roman and Jey. Again, like you said, Roman was doing stuff for Jey and making Jey feel kind of bigger with him and making him feel kind of equal. And so I don't know what they're doing there, but I didn't think they needed to win this match. I don't know where they go from here just because they won. I mean, I know Bronson and Braun are probably just going to get their heat back, but just make the faction feel strong and feel really, really strong. Seth is your champion. Have Bronson get a big win. Have Braun be another big star. Just Roman and Jey winning just felt kind of okay. Where do you go from here? What story are you telling? I mean, now I'm willing to let it play out, but this is one where I would have Bronson get some shine here, get a big win, and kind of move on from there. But the match was good. I liked the match. I wouldn't have had Roman and Jey win.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I guess I was surprised at first that Roman and Jey won. I was kind of expecting Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker to kind of have their breakout win, their breakout moment here in this match. Could have ended the show with this group looking really strong. But I think, Brandon, you brought up a good point as far as kind of where do they go from here with Jey and getting the win is now, given what we saw in this match, the relationship with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns is very different than the one that we're used to. So I think that's going to be explored a lot. Jey Uso is, week to week. I mean, I don't want to say he's a bigger star than Roman Reigns right now, but certainly on a week-to-week basis, he's out there. Roman isn't. Mm-hmm. I do wonder, it was a good match and all, but it felt very inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, I guess. And I feel like when you have Roman Reigns for the limited amount of dates and the limited amount of matches that you have him for, it appears, I don't know any particular number, to throw him in a tag match on the opener of a show and have it kind of be just afterthought by the end is an interesting use of him.
It's the old Brock Lesnar spot. Get him in, get him out.
Yeah. And I mean, he had that big spot jumping over the top rope. Jay did most of the work, which you would expect. So I mean, you can see in the chat there's a lot of varying opinions out there about who people thought was going to win this match, and I don't have any ill will by having Jay and Roman win. I think by virtue of having Seth Rollins stand tall at the end of the show, this group, whatever it's called. By the way, kind of strange that we still don't have a name, right?
Yeah, weird.
Nothing official. Yeah. It's very, very hard to converse about them when you end up listing all 3 or 4 of their names instead of just calling them one thing. They stood tall at the end, so that kind of made up for the loss here. But it was just it was a very empty calories match. It was good, but I didn't feel anything from it. But I think the most important thing coming out of this is Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker's going toe-to-toe with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns and really challenging them from a physicality standpoint. I think that's going to be good for them going forward, but also that relationship between Jey and Roman. What does that look like moving forward?
Yeah, Brandon, real quick, I wanted to say real quick, when I talk about the match, the one thing I don't like too about Jey, and I know in the arena it's great, but when he does 5 minutes of him doing his entrance, and then he does the retake during a match, I hate that. That's stupid. Like, come on.
No, it's tough to watch live, but man, when you're trying to watch a 2-hour Raw, 2.5-hour Raw, and that's an automatic fast forward, I welcome that.
I mean, if you're trying to catch up, it's certainly certainly good. It didn't bother me tonight, and the only reason I think is because I was fascinated by how Roman reacted to it. We haven't seen that sort of playful side of Roman Reigns in a long time. And for so long, the playful side of Roman Reigns was like the least cool thing in all of wrestling. So to see him be playful and get cheered heavily for it because they've done such incredible character work with him over the last half decade, I think is a really cool kind of full circle moment for Roman Reigns and that character. Before we jump away from this match, Ryan Solario a short while ago in the chat mentioning at the end of the show, Braun Breaker's leg was heavily wrapped. And I wanted to talk about this because I happened to catch in between 2 matches pretty early in the show. I saw a video posted to Reddit. I think it had been shared on Twitter or somewhere else of someone in the stadium in the lower bowl who had a view behind the side of the stage. And it was Braun Breaker being helped up a set of stairs to behind the entranceway. And he was moving incredibly gingerly. It didn't look like he could put any weight on that leg at all. So there was speculation, of course, that he was injured. And then at the end of the night, he does make it out there, but his leg was heavily, heavily wrapped. So unsure. If it was super serious, you'd have to think that they wouldn't have sent him out there. But I don't know.
Does he have a Money in the Bank briefcase that we don't know about that he's trying to fake someone out about?
What's going on?
Now we have to question everything. I don't know, but that would be a bummer if this is something that will keep Breaker out for any length of time. You just get Seth Rollins back, and now you potentially lose Breaker. Hopefully it's nothing serious, and they had him wrapped, as a precaution. It's just something he needs to ice, but. If you can find the video, I'm sure it's all over the place. He was moving very, very gingerly up those steps. Putting no weight.
Yeah, that bump on the announce table, he did hit his knee. Like they showed when he came down, he did bump it pretty good. I'm thinking that's probably what he did. Probably just bruised it a little bit badly from that or something. That's what I'm assuming, but I hope that's all it is.
Yeah, you hope. I mean, considering that spot came relatively early in the match and he was able to work, whatever it was, another 14, 15 minutes and look unscathed, hopefully it is just a matter of, bruised knee or something and the adrenaline wore off and then he's feeling it pretty heavily. All right, let's keep going. We'll keep marching through the show here. Second match of the night, another tag team match, which is something I want to touch on here as we work through. Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez defending their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships against the frenemy pairing of Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. The challengers capturing the women's tag team titles here in just over 13 minutes. I thought the closing minutes of this one was a lot of fun. My one knock on this was that it felt to me that booking 2 tag team matches back to back with WWE's style of booking or tag team matches felt a little strange in the sense that these matches were formulated very, very similarly, in the sense that you have a long, prolonged beatdown section for the babyface in peril that leads to a big hot tag, and then your more action in the center. And they laid out these matches in a very, very similar way. I think they tried to vary it a little bit later on with the third tag team match of the night, but these two going back to back felt very similar to me. I would have liked to maybe have seen the Sammy and Karrion Kross match put in this slot instead, just to give the tag action a break. But I thought, aside from that, the stuff that the wrestlers can't really control, the way that things are booked, I thought that this was largely fun. I have really enjoyed the Charlotte and Alexa pairing. I have found Charlotte Flair to be a tough character to get behind for many, many years now, and this is the first time that the crowd seems genuinely invested in her in a babyface role. Wade Barrett even said it, that 3 or 4 weeks ago, crowds were outright rejecting Charlotte Flair, and now they can't wait to see her. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Alexa Bliss has established and maintained an incredibly organic, natural connection with the audience that she's had for the better part of a decade now. And that is rubbing off on Charlotte. They like seeing these two together. And I think so far it's working pretty well. Greg, what do you think?
I agree. I talked with Wade Keller last week on the flagship about it. I wrote a Parks' take on PWTorch.com last weat about it. Just about how this might be the most successful Charlotte Flair babyface character that we've seen. At least the most widely accepted, maybe. And I think a lot of it has to do with her chemistry with Alexa Bliss. I think some of it might have to do with the Players Tribune column that she wrote about her struggles and how that's kind of a load off her shoulders at this point. And, she feels a little more free. It's been really well played. I know that there was a concern from some corners that there might be a heel turn at this show for Charlotte.
Yeah.
I don't think, they win the titles. That's great. I think good work should be rewarded, and they've certainly done good work. And, with Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez, they go back to Judgment Day, and there's some controversy there with Liv Morgan probably soon to return, and them losing the tag titles. So there's going to be some explaining to do tomorrow night or Monday night on Raw. But yeah, Charlotte and Alexa have been great together, and I like them going in this direction. I would love if they kept them together. I feel like we argue this all the time whenever there's a pairing that's working, and you're just scared to look around the corner because there's always that heel turn, right? And so many times we've argued, I would just like to see them kept together. Like, I think that can be a success. And I think that's the same thing here.
Especially when you do like the strange bedfellows thing.
Yeah, for sure.
They're more apt to move on the turn pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I love the idea too. If they're interested in any point at moving Charlotte into the title picture or moving Alexa into the title picture, instead of breaking them up, just have them root each other on. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having two friendly baby faces, vying for singles titles after this tag run is done, and they can be in each other's corners, in certain scenarios. I just think that the cachet that Alexa Bliss has is so important to utilize on Charlotte Flair if you want Flair to continue to be a major player. And I'm always, we haven't seen nearly as much of her in the last couple of years because of, her pregnancy and then some injuries and some creative differences. But just credit to Alexa Bliss, who I still say pound for pound is the best actor in the entire company. I just think that there is no one who comes off as natural as Alexa Bliss. I have said that for years. I think that she does a tremendous, tremendous job in the role that they ask her to play, and I think it's helping Charlotte a lot here. Sean, go ahead. Your thoughts on this one?
So as far as the match goes, I enjoyed it. I mean, Brand, I see what you're saying. It made sense what you were talking about. It didn't bother me, I guess, because though they're well done as far as they I like that they build up to that. I like that, and especially with an Alexa Charlotte match, it makes sense that they would do that. Just the way they're playing in the story with them, and I like the way they had Alexa, accidentally hit Charlotte, and then obviously feeling bad, but then coming up to help her at the end and helping get the win, and Charlotte realizing actually not, they didn't play a lot of tension initially. Like she kind of said something, but there wasn't a lot of issues with them. They were just like cool, like they won the titles, everything was good basically, and like they moved on, which was really well done, I thought. And I wanted to say with Charlotte, when she first came back after the injury and they did the horrible vignette, talking about how arrogant she is and how all this stuff, and then she wants to try to get cheered. Mm-hmm. That's where I had the issue. That's where initially I had the issue of, I feel like them just shoving her as a babyface down my throat. Not me, us as a whole, because I feel like that's what they were trying to do initially. And I was like, okay,
it was the same character. It was just shoving her out there and expecting people to cheer for her because she's Charlotte Flair, not for any other reason.
Yes, and so I didn't like when they first Alexa came in. I was like, I don't like, what is this? Like, what does this mean? Like, what are they? What is the point to this? But then the more they had these vignettes, the more they had these interactions. I'm with you guys. I love it now. I think Charlotte feels relatable. There's a connection between them where they're just enjoying playing off of each other, and it just seems real. It does seem more genuine to me, and I'm excited to see where they go. And like you guys said, I want them to be the champions for a while. The women's tag team titles need a team that they can have the title for a while, build chemistry with them, and then even if they lose the titles, just like you said, guys, have them go their separate ways. They don't have to turn. Nobody has to turn on anyone to make this work later down the road. It can be just fine them moving away. So I love them winning the titles. It was a cool moment. I like you said, Greg, I like Charlotte more than I have in a long time. So it's been fun so far seeing them together.
I think that's a good point too, Sean, in the sense that if this is a longer title reign, you really want to have those titles on wrestlers who can lend credibility to titles that have historically not had a lot of prestige. And Charlotte and Alexa can certainly do that. And unlike a combination like Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, who I think people were just waiting for the moment that they lost the titles and moved on, because it felt like Bianca was destined for another main event push, and Jade was also right on the cusp of that big singles push. So it felt like the tag titles were very much a placeholder. For Flair and Bliss, it doesn't have to feel that way, because people have been asking for Flair to be kept out of the title picture for a while. And that's part of the reason why fans have been so apt to dislike her as a babyface, because they perceive her as overpushed. Meanwhile, Bliss is a big star, but doesn't feel like somebody who necessarily has to be in a one-on-one title feud, because I don't think that when people think of the best wrestlers in the women's division, they think of Alexa Bliss. They like her as much as almost any other woman in the company, but I don't think that they view her as, a top 5 wrestler. So I think it's just a really good combination of two characters that people are not going to be clamoring for to be in a main event singles feud. And so because of that, you can really get legs out of this tag team. Greg, anything you want to throw out there before we keep marching on?
No, I agree with your thoughts about the match being too similar to the previous match in terms of layout and things like that. So I definitely hear what you're saying there. But that's about it for me.
Cool. Let's go ahead and keep marching through then. We are on to a backstage segment, which we don't need to talk about, but in any detail. New Day, Alpha Academy, Nikki Bella, we're doing a sponsored shot for some pizza. biggest thing here to me is just like how
Why?
uneventful this heel
Why?
run has been for New Day. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of back to being comedic figures. I get the idea of wanting to get Nikki Bella on TV for a moment, but I don't think it does her any favors either, especially if she's going to be around regularly. Greg, your thoughts here, especially with New Day and Nikki?
Yeah, it was kind of cheesy, pardon the pun,
Yeah.
segment, but
Very, very.
I don't know. I don't have much to add outside of that, I guess.
I mean, I certainly don't want to spend any significant time on it. I just wish that when they would do these things, they would do, Alpha Academy, whatever. You expect them to kind of be in that role. But
Yeah.
it seems like they want to get something out of Nikki and for the New Day heel run to have been so disappointing and then lead into something like this, just kind of a bummer. But I mean, no big deal, obviously. We move on to match number 3, Karrion Kross with Scarlett versus Sami Zayn, the blow off to this long running feud. Sami Zayn, the winner in just over 8 minutes. Sean, I'll throw to you first. What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the match was, it was fine. I mean, it was one of, Kross's better matches. I thought he did okay. I thought he, actually sold some stuff pretty well, even though the exploder in the corner looked, kind of weak because he's a little bigger guy and it didn't work as well as I thought it could have. I just initially, my thought was going into this match was I know that there's been talk of Kross, his contract running out and him leaving after this. And, I'm not his biggest fan. Trust me, don't get me wrong, but I think he's done some good stuff here in the last 6 months or so. And I was leaning initially in my head. I thought, well, maybe this is a plan to have Kross win again and build to a Sami heel turn, because I know a lot of people don't like that, and I don't like. I'm back and forth. I like it, but then I'm like, well, he's such a natural face. It just makes sense to keep him going on the story on the track that he's on. And so when Sami won, I was like, it's fine. I mean, it was a good match for what it was. They told, is he going to use the pipe? You knew he wasn't, so he threw it away. And yeah, it was pretty basic. But Sami, I think there's a bigger story they're telling here with Sami. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with him, because he's over. I mean, the fans still love him. I still love him. So I'm curious where they go next with them.
Yeah, genuine consensus in the chat has been more or less rather underwhelming as a match overall. I do think, Steve in the chat saying Kross's entrance in daylight, it didn't quite work as well as it usually does. It didn't get much of a crowd reaction when he came out until the intensity picked up, and then there was that kind of respectful cheer. I was admittedly a little bit surprised that that there was a dueling chant in the middle of this one. I knew that Kross had gained a significant amount of support from the crowd, but I didn't think that it had reached a level where the interest in him would rival that of Sami Zayn. And I don't think it was telling of Sami's position or Kross's position. I think it was a situation where, you had a segment of the audience who started a Kross chant, and it just made sense to kind of carry it with a dueling chant, and the crowd seemed mostly more invested in Sami as the thing progressed. I'm with you, Sean. I'm not the biggest Karrion Kross fan. I would certainly give him. I would certainly say that we've seen improvement. I think that what he's done in this Sami Zayn feud has certainly been better than what I've come to expect from him. But I also don't think that we're going to, if WWE opts not to renew he and Scarlett's contract, I don't think that we're going to be looking at this and saying, man, what a missed opportunity. They really were on the cusp of something here. By the same token, if they decide to re-sign them, I don't think that it's a scenario where I'm like, why in the world would you invest more money into this guy? I think that he's shown enough that they've potentially earned another contract. But if they don't get one, I don't think that we're missing out on any major breakthrough long term. Greg, where do you fall on that?
there's probably not another feud / storyline happening right now in WWE, at least at this level, in terms of the push. Last two pay-per-views had matches on it that I care less about than Sami Zayn versus Karrion Kross.
Yeah.
Like,
Ouch.
I do not care. I don't get the people that are lining up behind Karrion Kross. It always seems like there's got to be somebody that you get behind who's not being pushed. And Bryan Danielson,
the Austin Theory thing, similar to Austin Theory.
Yeah, the Bryan Danielson thing I got, even the LA Knight thing I got.
Mm-hmm.
Karrion Kross I don't understand. Like, his character is, I think it needs to be fleshed out a lot more. It seems very one-dimensional to me, like, the evil, brooding bad guy on a cartoon. Like, it's just not. There's no depth to it. Sammy, good to see him overcome it. Good to see him, and it seems like Karrion Kross, he would acknowledge at the end of the match that after Sammy said we're done, he was like, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know where Kross goes from there, which certainly I think accelerates the conversation about him maybe not getting a contract offer. But I think of, and I'm not someone who believes that NXT's men's roster is all that in a bag of chips, but I think of how many men in NXT could be up in WWE in Karrion Kross's role and more successful. And it's nothing against the guy. It's not personal or anything like that. I just don't see it. I don't see what all these other people are seeing in him. The match was there. I mean, that's the best I can say about it. It didn't really do much for me. And his character, like I said, is very one-dimensional. So I'm not really sure what the hullabaloo is.
We do have several people in the chat pointing out, Greg, and it may be that you already know this, that it seems like the majority of interest that's built for Kross over the last year or so has been because of some of the
social media,
the promos he's cut on social media.
Right.
There was, and I've seen some of those, and they're fine. They're better than your standard Kross promo, but I'm with you, Greg. I still just don't see it at any significant level.
Yeah,
I agree.
The only other thing I was going to mention here, if I can find it in the chat, maybe I cannot. No. All right. Let's keep going then. All right, we're moving on to, or actually, before we get to match 4. There was another Hulk Hogan tribute. They did show Nick Hogan at ringside. He was in attendance for this show. I thought that was a curious choice, given what we know about Nick Hogan and the history with him. But they're going to get a lot out of this situation, it seems. Cole also plugged AAA Triple Mania, and they did show Psycho Clown and Mr. Iguana at ringside, who also wrestled on SmackDown on Friday. And then we get a promo package for the Women's Championship match. So Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill competing for the WWE Women's Championship. This is, of course, after Cargill won Queen of the Ring to earn herself a championship match at SummerSlam. Tiffany Stratton, the winner in just a hair over 7 minutes to retain the Women's Championship. This was a match, and I wrote this from my report on PWTorch, where it felt the opposite of the norm, in which the parts of this one were greater than the sum total. There were several number of spots in this one that I thought were ambitious, incredibly athletic, and worked out surprisingly well. But I also thought that this suffered from what most Jade Cargill singles matches do, and that is the tendency to feel like every spot is very particularly and meticulously choreographed, and Jade is processing the beats of the match in real time, and you can see it on her face as she works through spot after spot. I was surprised by the length of this one. This was built as a strong major world championship match on the SmackDown side for the women, and they only got 7 minutes. They worked hard out of the gate. There was no wasting time. We started the show talking about CM Punk and Gunther and the way that they plotted through those first 5 minutes and really, really took their time laying their stuff in. This was the exact opposite. It was, hard hitting right out of the gate. They got their stuff in and they got out of there. Cargill had some new offense. Tiffany, for her part, had a couple of neat new moves. But this again, the feeling that I walked away from this with was that to me this felt like a clear decision to pull back on Jade Cargill, at least for now. If Cargill was going to lose, you would have thought that it occurred in a longer match with more near falls, with more opportunities for Jade to really shine. And instead for Stratton to go over in 7 minutes, in admittedly a competitive match, but still a 7-minute match nonetheless, felt to me like WWE saying, okay, for the time being, we can't trust Jade Cargill in a main event title match position in the style of main event match that we want to see our women wrestle. Greg, where do you fall there?
I understand that being the read that you have on it. I know when I hosted the Night of Champions post show and Jade beat Asuka for the Queen of the Ring final to earn this title shot against Tiffany Stratton, I thought that even then that this match was going to tell us a lot about Jade Cargill's progress and what WWE thought of Jade Cargill. Because neither Jade nor Tiffany are ring generals at this point. And I think that goes to your point of it being probably overly rehearsed for that point. If Jade is in there with an Asuka, maybe not so rehearsed. Maybe Asuka can kind of walk her through things in a way that Tiffany Stratton just doesn't have the experience to do. The time of the match, the pretty clean victory from Tiffany Stratton. I did think this was going to be kind of a seminal moment for Jade Cargill in her career. And I think she can still be an attraction. I think that she can still be seen as very special within the WWE ecosystem. But I think we saw tonight that she's not ready for that top spot. She's not ready for that championship mantle quite yet. And I think it's understandable. Some people are wondering if she'll ever be ready for that. The system is not in place for someone to get substantially better at this level. There's no house shows. You're not calling things in the ring. You're not going to different territories and learning how to work different ways. It's one rigid system. Even now, I think it's gotten a little bit more inclusive, but I think it's still probably a very WWE-ized system of way of doing things. And so I think it is fair to wonder, what is her ceiling from an in-ring standpoint? Can she get a lot better? Does she need to? Maybe there's the argument that what she's doing is good enough, and it's enough to get by in the women's division. So, decent match, but nothing more than that. And I think that was kind of my take on this whole card until the main event. It was just kind of decent. I mean, and nothing knocked my socks off. Nothing insulted my intelligence either, which is always good. But it just was kind of there, and didn't do much for me until the main event. And this kind of fell in that line.
Yeah, I think that with Cargill at this point, I don't think that losing to Stratton in the manner in which she did is indicative that they're throwing in the towel on her entirely. I think that it could be indicative of them pulling back the reins, at least for now, and reassessing what they think they might have there. I also think that in the way that AEW treated her with kids' gloves for a while, it might benefit WWE to do the same in the sense that Jade could quite easily win the Women's United States Championship at some point here in the not too distant future. and get her feet wet with a number of televised matches defending that title. Make her a real fighting champion and give her that in-ring experience on a week-to-week basis, if that's something she's interested in. I mean, if they want to push further in the direction of her being an attraction, then that's obviously not the route you go. You don't want to expose her weekly on SmackDown if you don't think that she can ever rise to that level. But if they're not willing to throw in the towel on her being that type of performer for them, then I think that's a good avenue to take. I do think it also says something about their commitment to Tiffany Stratton, too. I mean, Cargill is a big name with a lot of money and a lot of time invested in her. And WWE thinks enough of Stratton to say, hey, we're going to put you over this, this golden goose of ours in 7 minutes and retain your title. I think that there are character concerns with Tiffany Stratton. I do, the chat was raising the mention, and I'll put Derek Mitchell's message up here, just saying Tiffany's so unlikable as a face. He finds her voice incredibly annoying. Understands why Tiffany is pushed because WWE always has a prominent blonde in one of the top roles. I think that there is truth to the notion that Stratton's character lends itself much more to being a heel, but I also think it's important to acknowledge that the crowd is just very enamored with Stratton, and making her a heel because of that seems pretty challenging overall. Sean, we haven't talked to you about this one yet. Go ahead with your thoughts about the match itself, and then maybe what you see for both Jade and Tiffany coming out of this.
So the match, what you brought up, especially the one in the corner when they went up to the top, and they plotted to get to that, and you could tell Jade really was trying. I mean, now it was a weird spot too because it was in the corner, and Tiffany's trying to, go from her, she's trying to get up to the top rope with Jade behind her. It's kind of a weird spot anyway, and that was very ambitious, and it kind of worked out decently well. Tiffany made it work, but it was kind of weird. I mean, the match was fine. I mean, they did some cool stuff. I mean, I thought it was actually pretty good, but it was ambitious. I agree with that. The match itself was fine. My issue, I have a couple things. Going back to Tiffany, and I was going to say what you just talked about with what Derek brought up is, I think Tiffany has a lot of potential. Again, kind of like with Jade, I think there's a lot of potential there. But since she's won the title, the matches have been good. Like obviously, the match at Evolution with Trish was really, really good. You knew she was winning, but the match was good. And the match with Charlotte was, overall pretty solid. It was physical. Her character is all over the place. Like she had the promo. It was one of the vignettes they had with her and Jade going into the match, and she was like, "Oh, everybody's doubting me, thinks I'm naive, and all that." Like nobody's doubting you, Tiff. We're all into you. We fans love you. Like I don't understand why you're saying we doubt you. We don't doubt you. We know what you can do. We've seen it. You're just leaning on that stupid Tiffy time crap, and that's all you do is like, "What time is it? Tiffy time." That's not a main event character to me. That doesn't this is a main event woman that I want to get behind. And until she changes that, that's a worry for me going forward. I'm really nervous about what they're going to do with her. With Jade, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I just think if you're going to have Jade beat Asuka and beat Naomi a couple times and win all the stuff, beat all the people she's beaten, I think you just got to go all in and see what you have. If she wins the title and it doesn't work in a month, you just get it off of her and you do something different with her. I think you have to, if you're going to push her to that level, you might as well see what you have. And yes, there's some issues in the ring. I'm not debating those. And I'm a Jade defender, I think, more than some people are, but I just let her win it. Tiffany can be okay without the title. Let Jade have it for a little bit and see what happens. I mean, it can't hurt you that bad. If it doesn't work, you just get it off of her. So that was kind of where I thought after the match happened. I was like, well, I'd rather have Jade win, but we'll see where they go.
Yeah, Greg, respond to that.
I think that's a fair take. I think that there are enough strong women from an in-ring standpoint that Jade could have still some really good matches as champion with some of these challengers. So I would not begrudge them to have put the title on her and say, okay, let's see what you got. Let's do that. I mean, You could also say U.S. champion, right? So it's a kind of a half step down the ladder, but maybe not as much pressure to lead the division from an on-screen standpoint and to be in the spotlight as much. Maybe that's a role that's more befitting of Cargill's talent at this point. But also, I totally get what Sean's saying. And, if you want to get your money's worth out of her, if you want to put her in that position, I don't think you're going to get a lot of blowback for that.
Yeah, Cargill has been and continues to be a curious case. I mean, just scrolling through the chat tonight, and this is a regular phenomenon that we see on these post shows that include Jade Cargill matches. There is a wide variety of opinion on her. I mean, you go from Brock saying that Jade is peaked. She's as good as she's going to get. You have others saying that, clean loss for Jade, she can bounce right back, or looks like a star and talks well, she'll be fine. Standard deviation saying that she'd make a good heavy for a smaller world champion. Others, Jade just doesn't have it. There's just such a wide variety of reactions to Jade Cargill, and I think that WWE internally is going through a lot of the same conflicting feelings that we are as fans and as analysts with her. There's so much to like about what she brings to the table. There's also an argument that she's had all the time in the world to perfect that and hone that and get to a place higher than she has been able to get. And then there's the counter argument to that says, well, yeah, she's been around a long time at this point, but she hasn't had a lot of in-ring time because the company that she started in doesn't run house shows. The company that she's in now stopped running house shows. So there's a counterpoint to every point that you can make with Jade Cargill. And I think that it will continue to be that way until we just see something definitive from her, whether it be good or bad. And so far, we're just not getting it. Greg, I'll throw back to you. Anything that you want to finish up with here before we wrap it up with our last match of the night?
No, look, it's in the eye of the beholder. If you say that Jade is, maybe not the level of some of the other women in WWE, but is good enough, then I totally understand that. If you don't think she's good enough, I totally understand that too. The other thing you have to take into account here is you've got a lot of women coming up the pipeline who are much better in the ring than Jade Cargill, your Stephanie Vaqueras, your Julias, and they have the potential to jump Jade Cargill in line at some point. And
Mariah May, too.
That's going to be where the rubber hits the road with her, I think.
Yep. And Mariah May sort of ticks all of those boxes that Jade ticks too. And so that's another, the very athletic, put together look. Like Mariah checks that box. She's also a good promo. She's very much improved in the ring. There are a lot of people, Greg, you're right, that are right behind Jade and could easily supplant her in that role. So it will be interesting going forward for sure. All right, let's jump to our last match to discuss for night one of SummerSlam here. The not a mixed tag match, but a tag match involving a celebrity. It's Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton and Jelly Roll. It's kind of hard to believe I'm saying that, but Jelly Roll did in fact wrestle a tag team match. Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre, your winners in 17 minutes. I thought that this was better than it had any real right to be. I do knock it slightly for really heavily relying on that hot tag formula that we had in the first two matches. We had 3 tag team matches on the show. All of them followed very similar pacing. And I do wonder, of course, hindsight is always 20/20, but I do wonder if I would be a little bit more impressed with this show overall and the pacing of this show overall if they had swapped out one of those tag matches for one of the matches on tomorrow night's card. And how that would have sort of changed the way things came together. But in any case, I was pleasantly surprised by Jelly Roll. It was obvious that all of his spots were very well curated. but I thought that this was another surprisingly impressive non-wrestler performance. He did a perfectly admirable job, to me at least, of keeping up with three top-tier athletes. They designed everything that Jelly Roll was doing really, really carefully, but everything seemed to work. I had some concerns that because they were in New York, that Jelly Roll would be largely rejected. New York is typically, or not New York, but New Jersey. The New York, New Jersey area market is typically a tough crowd, and Jelly Roll seemed like the type of character that might not be warmly received. But I think the earnestness with which Jelly Roll presented himself and the fact that he was teaming with Randy Orton, one of the most over wrestlers in the company, did a great deal and helped a great deal in mitigating any chance of that happening. Other than that, pleasantly surprised that Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre won here. I really thought that WWE's formula historically has been that when you have a big celebrity involved in your show, they're typically going to get the win, or at the very least, if they are to lose, they're going to get their big comeuppance moment after the match. And they did neither here. Jelly Roll lost, and Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre stood tall. Thought that was the right move. Jelly Roll is not a wrestler, doesn't need to win. Randy Orton is Teflon, doesn't need to win. Both Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre, I think you can make the case, needed a win here, and they got it. Sean, I'll throw to you first.
Well, I guess I'll say Jelly Roll, people slander. I'm not going to get into all that other stuff. People don't like Jelly Roll for whatever reasons you want to have. That's fine. Jelly Roll has lost a lot of weight. He looks in good shape. He's really worked hard. The one thing I'll say is WWE does the celebrity stuff too much, and I get it. For the big shows, they always want to have a celebrity, and it gets overdone, and that's why I think people crap on it a lot. This one was about as well done as Bad Bunny. It was pretty close. It was really, really well. Jelly Roll has been at the Performance Center. They've said he's really worked hard to get himself in with the wrestlers, wanting to work with them, wanting to do everything he could to make this as good as it was, and it was great. Really well done all around. I mean, Jelly Roll was fantastic. His promos made you invest in him and who he is and what he's about, what he wants to do. He wants to beat the crap out of Logan. It was fun. It made you want to see him beat Logan, even though I'm with you. I thought they were going to win, and I'm glad they didn't. I just assumed Logan was going to take the pin. They were just going to move on and do whatever. But Logan was good in this match. He's just talks a bunch of trash. I love it. I mean, Drew's been so good as a heel. I just think the whole match was pretty well laid out, other than what you said about the tag matches in general. I do wish they would have probably switched one. They could have done that. It would have been totally fine. They would have worked a little bit better, I think, overall, in my opinion, for the night. But this was really, really well done. Logan needed a big win. If you're going to keep Logan around, he needs a big win like this, even though it's Jelly Roll, but it's a win for him. It gets him the heel. It makes you want to hate him even more. And I like what they did all around. This was really good. This was a really well done match.
Greg, go ahead.
Agreed on a lot of those counts. I think when you're looking at celebrity involvement inside the ring, you have to split it into two categories. You got to split it into celebrity athletes and celebrity non-athletes. And when you put Jelly Roll in the non-athlete category and think about what he did, it's really amazing. I mean, did everything look good? No, of course not. But the fact that he was willing to go to the degree that he did in this match and do the things that he did. And for those who are unfamiliar with him or think he's just some country singer, I mean, he's like one of the top country acts in the country right now, country music.
He's just coming off a stadium tour with Post Malone. So
yes. So he's a big deal in that genre. If you're not familiar with country music, so the fact that he did all of this, and I think I saw somebody post that he's got a concert coming up August 15th. So he's like, it's a quick turnaround. But wow. Wrestling fans are forgiving if you show that you are genuinely interested in being part of the show. It's why the guest host era of Raw didn't work, because you could tell that 90% of those people had no investment in wrestling, were not fans, were there to plug their crap and move on. Jelly Roll, for his faults, is obviously a huge fan and obviously loves to be involved in this. And fans can see that, and they're going to be a lot more forgiving of the bad punches or the awkward selling or all that other stuff that we would otherwise criticize wrestlers for. I thought the best part of what he did tonight was when he turned around in the aisleway to head back to the ring and the selling that he did. Mm-hmm. And granted, it all went away when he got in the ring and he was, a house of fire and everything like that. But to elicit sympathy from the crowd with that selling, trying to get back up and get that tag, I thought was tremendous and better than some trained wrestlers in terms of their selling in that moment. And I think it really got the crowd behind him. I mean, the usual formula for celebrity matches is leave them on the apron, let the real wrestler take the bulk of the match, let the celebrity get the hot tag and do all, this was Jelly Roll taking the entire match and Randy Orton sitting on the sidelines, basically. So, I mean, it was really wild. So you have to have a different mindset and a different scale when you're looking at matches like this and celebrity matches. So I for what it was, and that's how we always preface these things, right? For what it was, I thought it was pretty well done. And Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre getting the victory, I think they are made for each other. I think that's a pairing that I would like to see WWE explore more in terms of heels, because they are very similar in a lot of ways. So that's really, I think they found something with that, and I think they should continue to explore that chemistry there. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun. It's kind of like the empty calories that I said about the opener, right? It's fun, ultimately probably meaningless in the grand scheme of things, unless Jelly Roll comes back to extract revenge on Drew McIntyre or Logan Paul in the midst of a title match or something like that. But it was a fun kind of sideshow match.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was, again, like I said, on the highest end of what we could reasonably expect. And again, I'm most pleased, I think, with the result. I just think that Logan and Drew going over here was the right call, and felt like something that subverted expectations a little bit, because it is in WWE's purview and wheelhouse to really lean into the celebrity cameo. Whether it's with a win or a big comeback moment after the match where they sort of get their moment to shine. I thought that this played out the way that it likely would play out in real life if this were a real fight. And I think you're seeing largely agreements across the board in the chat. People generally impressed with Jelly Roll, even if they weren't necessarily interested in him coming in. Certainly, at the very least, relatively impressed for what we got on the way out. So that covers it, guys. We've got all 6 matches in. I do want to, of course, go around the horn, get overall takes, thumbs up, thumbs down on the show. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick opportunity to, of course, plug the PWTorch VIP. Get that up on the screen here. For those of you listening on audio after the fact, it's pwtorch.com/go-VIP. That gives you access to a whole host of awesome stuff, awesome content, ad-free podcasts, VIP-only podcasts. You get 35 years of the podcast and newsletter archives, the weekly PDF newsletter, and then you can go back and look at back issues dating back all the way to the late 1980s, covering all the major angles. Obviously we just had the huge passing of Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea. If you want to look through what was being said about his matches, his controversies, the whole 9 yards in real time, you can do so in the PWTorch archives. Also a great host of VIP only exclusive audio, including the Fix with Todd Martin, Wade Keller Hotline, the post-event roundtable podcast, which as usual, Wade and company are recording as we do this show live on air. That'll be available for VIP members if it isn't already. Alan Forel's Pro Wrestling Paradise, everything with Rich Fan, so much more, including a VIP exclusive show from my co-host here tonight, Greg Parks. Greg, I will let you plug that, and of course everything else that you do for the Torch.
So I was, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I was on the flagship with Wade Keller, not this past week, but the week before, breaking down a lot of the big shows that happened a couple weekends ago. And every week on PWTorch.com, I write a kind of a bite-sized column called a Parks' Take, and that appears at some point during the week. There's no set schedule for it. It could be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on when inspiration hits. So check those out. I usually link to them on social media. So follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Greg M. Parks. And then I have my full-page column every week in the Torch newsletter. And accompanying that in audio form for VIP members of PWTorch.com is Greg Parks Out Loud, where I actually read my column out loud and then digress at points where I don't have the room in the column to add more to it. So it kind of lets me go off on tangents and explain a little bit more of my thinking about what I'm writing about. So that's always fun too. So and then, of course, I'm here almost every month, at least one of the shows a month with you, Brandon, and a lot of times Sean here breaking down the PLEs and pay-per-views.
Perfect. Sean, you weren't expected to be a co-host tonight, but very, very slyly and thankfully slid in when we needed you. When Greg had some audio troubles.
I would say suspiciously, Brandon. I would say suspiciously.
True. Suspiciously.
Man, on that,
for those of you who joined us later on in the show, there is a bit of controversy surrounding Sean's appearance.
There is
on Wrestling Night in America tonight. The chat does believe that it is possible that Sean may have turned heel and cashed in his host in the bank contract, as Ryan Solorio put it in the chat. Sean slid in, might have flown to Florida and flipped a switch on Greg's computer. We don't know. We'll never know.
You'll never know. You'll never know. No, it's
Sean. Sean, go ahead.
No, I say thanks for letting me get in, and like I know you and Chris obviously have it tomorrow, and I'll be in the queue, so I'll obviously get my thoughts on the show. But whatever you want me, I'll help out in any way I can. No, the show I like the show a lot. I really enjoyed it immensely. It was a really easy watch. They didn't do a lot of they didn't draw stuff out. They didn't do a bunch of random stuff other than that one backstage thing. Other than that, they really kept that to a minimum, which I really liked. Somebody that actually called me out in the chat a little bit ago, they said it started too early, and I'm like, no, it didn't. It started great. I love it. I want that. Don't. I like when people will say, oh, this show is like 5.5 hours, and I'm here so late, but then they're like on the other side, oh, it's too early. I'm like, no, this is just fine. This is great. I hope they do that again tomorrow. Really good show. Really good wrestling overall. There's some nitpicks we had, and I definitely had some of those, but Greg, I wanted to say I don't get to talk to you as much as I like to off this, but I hope your wife and little girl are doing really well, and just always fun to talk wrestling with you guys. Always fun to be on with you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. They are. I thought just to kind of put a bow on tonight as we look forward to tonight too. It really felt like tonight was sort of the appetizer, and the second tomorrow night is the meal, right? It did feel that way. And like I said, it was a lot of matches that were just kind of there and just kind of okay. And then you get the main event and the main event angle, and then boom, we're off to the races. So, thumbs in the middle at best for me, probably. I really think it's hard to get a thumbs down show. I mean, your roster is so talented that even if booking gets in the way, the roster is good enough to where it's going to push it to at least a thumbs in the middle, if not a thumbs up, just based on in-ring work alone. And that goes for WWE, certainly AEW. So this is a thumbs in the middle because I thought, the output was pretty average. I'm not going to, assess the effort because I think that's always there. The output was just kind of okay. Nothing major happened until the very end. And tomorrow I would expect a little more in terms of things to talk about maybe coming out of that show.
Yeah, I'm probably a very, very mild thumbs up. I'm with you, Greg. The undercard, nothing was bad, nothing was offensive. Like we said, pacing of the tag matches felt a little peculiar to me. I would have preferred a switch up there, but nothing that is heavily impacting my overall feeling on the show. I think what it comes down to for me is like with you, Greg, I I felt like a lot of it was rather inconsequential until the main event. I really enjoyed the main event overall. I thought, despite being, plotting and deliberate, Gunther and Punk had a really good kind of old school style match, and then the Seth Rollins cash in and swerve was a big moment, a moment that is going to be talked about for a while, and I think it does a lot of good work in furthering what to me has been a very compelling angle between CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. Cool. So, a definite thumbs up from Sean, thumbs in the middle from Greg, mild thumbs up from me, and a mix in the chat as well. A lot of thumbs in the middle, a lot of thumbs up. But generally, people, I think, seeing this as an appetizer to night 2 tomorrow. And we, of course, will be back tomorrow with coverage of SummerSlam night 2. Greg, I know that we had discussed potentially, but are you joining us for part of the post show tomorrow?
That remains to be seen.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to watch it entirely live. If I do, I'll probably join for 15, 20 minutes just to kind of talk probably about the main event and the show as a whole. So that's probably the best I could do tomorrow, but I hope to be able to make it on for at least the first portion.
All right. So there is the hook for tomorrow night, everyone in the chat. Will Greg have a run in or not? And will Sean have a run in? Will Sean kick Greg out of the SummerSlam night 2 post show? It could happen. We don't know.
I'm a white meat baby face, guys. Come on, total white.
Not according to the chat, Sean. The chat.
That's what they used to. That's what they used to say about John Cena too.
Yeah, look how that turned out. So possible on Greg. But what I can tell you for certain is I will be here, and PWTorch contributor Chris Adams will be here. He will be joining me as official co-host for tomorrow night's show. Really cool that we get to run back the set of co-hosts that we had for WrestleMania, especially with Cody Rhodes and John Cena closing tomorrow night's show. I had Chris on for night 2 of WrestleMania earlier this year, and we'll do it again for SummerSlam. So I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. Thanks to everyone in the chat who joined us this evening for all of the conversation points and topics. Sean, thanks so much for being the emergency co-host and for sticking around. And thanks always to Greg. Until next time, this has been Wrestling Night in America.